Hello, everyone. Now, what I'm going to do is just quickly review some of the key aspects of the syllabus as well as the overall strategic management process chart with the objective of reminding some of the core areas and really sort of touching on aspects that I think are important to sort of keep in mind from the perspective of having a big picture in front of you. As usual, we keep going with the cases. We're now moving into the group case analysis. Looking into the reading, so we looked into the Unilever case, we looked into US chocolate confectionery, we looked into Starbucks and Zara. So now you have a structure and good understanding of how to solve cases. Now we're moving forward into the team presentations and team cases. So we're looking into, so this week we're discussing a hotels. And then after we have the final case, which is on Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. And this is where I suggested looking beyond just the information that is given in the case, and looking into additional sources. So we keep going with the readings. This is something that I generally recommend. We didn't cover some of that in the course, but a lot of the elements that I just embed into the course activity from the readings that I have in front of you. So just to touch on the aspect of topics and connect topics together so that we would have that big picture in front of us. So we looked into overall marketing management process. We looked into marketing decision-making and case analysis. So now we understand how do we decide, how do we solve problems? What are the key aspects that we're looking into? So looking into five forces, looking into the history of marketing, and then moving forward into the case analysis specifically. So how do we solve cases, including some of the quantitative analysis that we use in a case analysis. So further, we looked into connection to the strategies. We've done our first analysis. We then connected more into understanding of market opportunities in general, understanding consumer behavior, a very, very big topic when you go in depth into understanding some of the elements that are related to consumers, doing research, and then connecting to measuring market opportunities, and then forecasting and market knowledge in general. And then after that, looking into targeting attractive marketing segments and differentiation and positioning. So currently we're moving forward into what classically is known as 4P, which is we're looking into product decisions, pricing decisions, and I've recorded lecture for each of those as well. And then we are now discussing distribution channels, and then we're going to touch on integrated marketing communications or integrated promotion decisions. And then after that, I will conclude the class with some of the aspects from the SD logic, and as well as connection to digitally network world, and some of the core aspects that are happening at this moment of time, looking into artificial intelligence. So we'll talk more about the technology aspects. So this is where we are, and just moving forward, we have a few chapters left, and I just wanted to go back into our overall chart on the strategic marketing management. So we started, as you recall, we started with the strategy. So looking more into the corporate strategy, and then business unit strategy, and getting down to the marketing strategy level. And we, this was something that we looked into in chapters 1 and 2. Now you understand how to do a 5C analysis in terms of looking into customers, company, context, collaborators, and competitors. How do we move from the analysis into the strategy development, and then from strategy to tactics? So I explained the framework of goals, objective, strategic initiative, and tactics. So you have vision, mission, goals, right, on a goals level. Then you're getting to SMART objectives. And I want to emphasize that in some of the cases, you don't always put it as SMART. So it's important to define, to quantify it, and connect to a specific time period. And then after that, getting to some core initiatives. So what I would call a strategic initiative, and then tactical implementations. So going back into core questions that we're asking is, at the moment, as you're doing your situation analysis, you're asking, where are we now? After that, you're deciding, where do you want to be? And that's the decision that you have to make. And how will we get there? And after that, did we get there? So these 4 questions are important to keep in mind. And this sort of structure, although this is, it's in some squares and it's very linear in the sense, it's not, in the reality, it's not, it's more circular. And then you're sort of going forward, you're thinking where you are now, analyzing, identifying the strategic fit, going into the strategy, defining your goals and objectives, implementing those, the strategic initiatives that are leading to those goals and objectives. And then eventually, as you go on, you're doing your analysis, monitoring, and evaluation. And essentially you're coming back to sort of redeveloping the strategy as into a new period, because environment is changing and we have to adapt, right? So as you do the context analysis, that's where you're looking to understanding what is happening on the level of the environment, right? So looking into general things that are happening around us. So chapter 1 and 2, we discussed the strategy, and I emphasized that we need to start with big picture, because a lot of times the issue in marketing is that we're starting with 4 Ps, which is a sort of very tactical direction. And I would say this is where this is important, and a lot of times that's where we start. But it's important to keep a bigger strategy in mind, the corporate strategy, and then connect it to the business unit strategy, and then after that we're getting more to the functional level. So as you're doing the strategic fit, the analysis, I noted some of the core questions that you need to ask. What's your winning aspiration? Where do you want to play? How will you win? And then what capabilities you must have in place, and what management system are required. So essentially, this is where the question, when you're asking yourself why you're in this business, and as you're doing your analysis, the lenses that I noted is important, is what worked in the past, what is happening at this moment of time, what might happen in the future. And this is where chapters 3 and 4 are important to look into. So overall, in terms of reading, we covered 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, when we're talking about aspects of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Because again, that's also important to decide here is essentially segmentation. What is the relevant basis to segment your consumers? Targeting, who's our key segment, and then positioning, how we want to target the target to perceive the product. And then after this, once you define the segmentation, targeting, and positioning, we're moving forward into the into our planning, and then we're deciding, and actually gets down to the programming, allocation, and budgeting, and then the implementation. And as we go on, as usual, we do the analysis. So going into sort of core areas, key questions that you keep asking as you do case analysis: what is happening at this moment of time? Where do we want to be? How will we get there? And then eventually, did we get there, right? So, and I give you example of some of the financial metrics and marketing metrics. Sometimes we're mentioning financial metrics, but we're forgetting marketing metrics, or sometimes we're looking into marketing metrics, but financial metrics is not touched. So I would highlight that it's important to keep both in mind. We covered aspects from revenue, gross profit margin, net profit, cost, break even, etc. But also there, you have to keep in mind market share, penetration, awareness, trial, etc. This list goes on, right? So it's essentially you're deciding what is the metrics that you will use in order to evaluate your progress. So now looking into defining the fit, and then identifying why you're in this business, who's your target audience. You're moving forward and developing your marketing planning. And then after this, you're going forward into the programming, allocation, and budgeting. That's where the core of 4Ps or marketing mix decisions are happening. So we're deciding on the products and brands, we're deciding on pricing, we're deciding on place, and we're deciding on promotion. And this is where we are now. So readings in terms of chapters 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And essentially after this, we're moving forward into again, coming back. So this closing the loop, and then monitoring and auditing. Important questions to keep in mind as we talk about strategic initiative and tactics regarding 4Ps, right? And strategic initiative and tactics are about your 4Ps, is what and how. So what is your desired brand promise, and how do you execute the brand promise? And then as we go on, and we'll talk more about the communications piece of it, is who do we need to talk to? How do we shape our messages? How will we reach our target group? What do we want our target group to think, feel, and do? And how do we ensure the excellence in the execution? So hopefully this chart is becoming a little bit more clear from the perspective of when I showed you first time. There's a lot of information. There's a lot happening in this on this chart. But if you sort of, I wanted to put it into really one page so that you would keep it forever with you, in the sense that you want to come back. What are the key questions? What are the key points that we need to keep in mind in order to drive profitable growth, right? We're talking about marketing in the business setting. We're not, at this moment of time, we're not talking about other areas of marketing like social marketing or not-for-profit marketing. We're looking into cases, we're solving the cases from the perspective of how to profitably grow the business. And, 4 core questions: where are we now? Where do we want to be? How will we get there? Did we get there? 3 key steps: current analysis, and that's where you're doing your 5C analysis, SWOT analysis, PESTEL analysis. You're looking into 5 forces, and you're identifying what is happening, right? So where do we find that specific fit? And then you're deciding on what is going to be your strategy, which is, because customers are different, all customers differ, all customers change, all competitors react, and all the resources are limited. And because of that, you need to develop sort of big picture strategic approach towards the decisions that you will be implementing later on. So here you're looking into the strategy, and a lot of the strategic decisions are figuring out who's going to be your segment, who's going to be your target, what's going to be your positioning, and then identifying why and who of the business, right? And then moving forward, developing your planning. So as you develop your planning, you already know your goals and objectives. So at least you know your goals, you know how you're going to grow your revenue and profit. So specifically, you're setting up now SMART objectives, and then you're doing the strategic initiative and tactics. And all of this is going into your marketing planning. So you're developing your marketing planning, and you need to know what is your bigger goal and vision, what are your specific objectives, what are the key strategic initiatives, maybe per year. You won't have a lot, maybe you'd have 3-4 major strategic initiatives. And then a lot of the tactical decisions that would go into this is in terms of advertising on Facebook, on Google, doing the TV ads, deciding where you're going to sell it, what would be your channel structure, etc. And then you're going forward and you're implementing the what aspect and the how aspect. So I highlighted some of the elements regarding the product mix, place, price, and promotion, right? So you're deciding what's going to be your package materials, brand name, color, features, where you're going to market, what would be your positioning here in terms of like, depending on the positioning, how would you decide where you're going to sell your product, what would be your price, what would be your creative strategy, media planning, etc. As you can see, a lot of that is coming down to strategic decisions that you make earlier on in the process. And as we go on, analysis and research is it's a key aspect of we're always monitoring and checking what is happening. And we touched on the foundations of the consumer behavior, looking into consumer psychology, sociology of consumption, economics, behavioral economics, and anthropology. And as we go on, we sort of track things from the monitoring and auditing perspective. And then we sort of like this, it kind of loops back into the same process. And if you want to look into the sources, I also listed some of the sources of the materials that I'm using in this specific chart.